Right. Well, welcome again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. This is Aparo's Nonprofit Bites and Insights. This is our free webinar series that we have tailored specifically for nonprofit professionals. And today's session is being generously sponsored by Slalom. So today's session is focused around PowerPoint. Now, I know based on our registration, we have a wide range of skill levels from beginner, intermediate, advanced, but I also know PowerPoint has a lot of different features. So I'm confident that no matter where we are going to walk away with at least one tip or trick. We have some amazing presenters with us today, Bridget Nelson Palmer and Melanie Spinks. We also have Jim Burrows with us today. As I mentioned before, this is being sponsored by Slalom, so he'll share a little bit more about their organization. But before I turn it over to them, a few housekeeping details. This session is being recorded. It will be uploaded to our website and our YouTube channel. All of you who are attending live will receive a follow-up email from me that will include the link to the direct link to the recording, as well as copy of the slide deck and any other resources we might talk about today. Q&A chat box are available for you to use. I do ask that if you do have any questions, to drop those into the Q&A. It'll just help us keep us organized and make sure we address your question during the Q&A session. Really quickly, because I know some of you are unfamiliar with Aparo. So Aparo, we are a nonprofit ourselves. We are based in Charlotte, North Carolina. And essentially what we do is we help other nonprofits with any of their technology or business process challenges so that you all can focus on amplifying your impact in the communities and populations that you serve. We offer a wide range of services to help make sure we're meeting the needs of the nonprofits, which include free one-on-one consultation with a tech therapist, or it could be like a one-on-one coaching if you have issues with PowerPoint, for example. We can connect you one-on-one with a volunteer to help support that. If or when you decide you'd like to learn more about Apara or access our services, the best way is to go to our website at apara.org, and you can go there to learn more, as well as filling out a request for services. I also want to mention that we have a grant program that is opened. This is called our Mission Possible Awards. One organization from Charlotte, North Carolina, and one organization from the North Carolina Triangle area, so Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, will receive a $10,000 grant and up to $50,000 of consulting support to make your technology dream a reality. Now, you still have time to RSVP for the info session, which is actually tomorrow. I will drop the link in a chat in a moment. And then the deadline to actually register to participate will be March 7th. Finally, if you haven't already, subscribe to our email. That is it from me. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and turn it over to our guests.
Hi guys, I'm Bridget. I'm one of the presenters. I'm actually going to kick it over to Jim and he'll open us up by just telling a little bit about Slalom and then we'll get started. Take it away, Jim.
All right. Thanks, Bridget. Good afternoon. So a little bit about Slalom. Slalom is a modern consulting firm. We're focused on business, technology, and humanity. We work with clients to solve their most complex and interesting business challenges. Our approach is deeply collaborative, and we pride ourselves in our ability to bring together diverse perspectives to drive innovation and deliver impactful results. Slalom serves a wide range of clients, including about half the Fortune 500, many federal, state, and local government agencies, and some nonprofits. I believe you guys are in for a treat today with the session that you've got. Melanie and Bridget are really brilliant at what they do, and I hope this session will you'll leave with a couple of tips and tricks that will make a difference. So without further ado, let me give it back to Bridget and Melanie to get us on the way.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. If you can move forward, awesome. So my name is Bridget. I'll be one of your presenters today. I actually work in Jim's practice in the business advisories practice at Slalom. My key areas, I would say, are probably change management and process optimization. That's really where I thrive. And part of that change management piece is communications, which is why I'm here today. I'm very passionate about being able to give a clear, succinct message so that people understand and they're compelled to act, which we'll get into. So I'll kick it over to Melanie. Oh, Melanie, you're on mute.
Terrific. Melanie Spinks, I'm glad to join you today. I am an experience consultant, and I've been a former design professor. I'm very passionate about helping organizations craft exceptional experiences for not only their customers, but also their employees. Also, I've been an experienced business owner, and I've helped numerous nonprofits amplify their brand, digital marketing, and their strategy so that it connects them with the world in need of all those great things that nonprofits have to offer.
All right, agenda. You guys are in for a treat, right? As Jim says. We got a lot of awesome survey responses, and they were kind of, varying different levels on PowerPoint, varying different things that you guys want to learn. So we can't really focus on one area. So hopefully we'll kind of touch on a lot of different things. So obviously went through intros. Melanie, I'll start it off by talking about, why design, what makes design impactful, like what its purpose is. We'll then go into storytelling. So I'll touch on a little bit of that storytelling piece. So, where do you even start when you're starting to create your presentation and putting your story together? We'll talk about best practices for visuals. So Melanie will go through some key visual principles to help keep your slides impactful and not distracting. So we'll get into that more. Then, of course, my favorite part. So I will hopefully change some lives here. I have changed lives in the past, so buckle up. But I'll have some time-saving hacks. When I'm putting slides together, these are quick hacks that you can use starting today, really, to make your life so much easier. So we'll get into that. Shape-based layouts. So Melanie will talk about kind of how the eye moves through the slide and how to make things really use shapes as your friend to make your slides look more professional and enhance that visual hierarchy. And then we'll end with presenting with confidence. So showtime, what happens when you present? Melanie and I'll take you through some tools and some tips to hit a home run, really, when it comes time to present. So take it away, Melanie.
Great. Thank you, Bridget. So, why design? Now, I know what you're thinking. I mean, really, isn't it about the content? And to that, I would say yes, absolutely. But here's the thing about design. Flawless design amplifies great content. When design is bad, it becomes distracting. Think of design as the medium through which your message flows. Now, it's like the speakers in your car. When you're in the car, are you paying attention to your speakers? Not really. You're just listening, you're one with the music. You only pay attention when something goes bad, right? There's a buzz or something's off. So whenever design is off, it becomes a distraction. But when design is flawless, then your message is amplified and it flows through very clear and clean to the listener as it should. Now let's talk about good slides. What do they do? Well, it makes an professional impression. It conveys the care behind your content. And this will be important because if your slides are sloppy, it might introduce the idea to your viewer that, I wonder if the rest of their work is sloppy too. That's why it's important to have a good, crisp, solid design. It also tells your story in a visual way. It brings emotive power to your information and it mediates your message in a way that's intuitive, subconscious, and indirect. In other words, it bolsters your story. The visuals match your message and to bolster your content. This is a presentation design system ecosphere. Now, think about what makes impact, because really that's the goal at the end of the day. We want our message to land. So design, it's not just about how a thing looks, but it's how a thing is. Here we have content, visual, story, presentation working together for one goal, and that is impact. Now, strong design is going to unify diverse elements. Think of an orchestra. Every instrument does its part. So a lot of times we start with content. We have something we want to say, or maybe we want to persuade a board or what have you. So ask yourself, not just what's important to me, but what's important to the listener? What's important to the audience? Now, we'll talk about data. Humans are hardwired for story, and that's why its content lands better when it's placed in a story form. We're wired for story. We can't get enough of it. It's the organizing principle of our minds. We write thousands of stories every day to interpret all those micro interactions that happen to us. It's how we make sense of our world. And it's also how you foster engagement and buy-in when you present. Now, good design is disciplined. It's not the things that you include, but it's often the things, sometimes the great things that we also leave out in order to have maximum impact for our hearer. So infoblast is never effective, be it too many words or too much to look at visually. We just can't take it in. And so we'll talk about how to choose and orchestrate well so that your messages will land. All right, I'll hand it to Bridget.
Nice. Okay, so storytelling. Where do you even start, right? I know a lot of us struggle when you open PowerPoint. It's like deer in headlights. Where do I start, right? So we've got, okay, 5 tips for creating a more compelling story. I actually used compelling here very intentionally because compelling means that you're inspiring someone to take action, right? And that's the goal at the end of the day. Not only do you want to create something that's interesting, but you also want to leave your audience feeling compelled to do something about it, right? To take action. So here are some of my favorite tips to kind of take your story to the next level. So we're going to start with a little plot twist. I know we're here to talk about PowerPoint today, but I'm going to shake things up a little bit and tell you don't open PowerPoint. Well, not yet. So I know it's very easy, especially in the world of consulting, to hop into PowerPoint first and just start throwing slides together or pulling slides in from other decks. But that's kind of like walking into a kitchen and flipping on the oven before you know what you're cooking, right? You don't want to open PowerPoint until you feel confident in your story, how you want it to flow, who you're trying to compel, what punches you want to land. And, once you start to feel confident and comfortable in your story, 2 things naturally happen, right? 1, making the slides becomes much easier. And then 2, you're going to feel more prepared to tell the story when it comes time to present. So you're not going to be relying on, oh man, what was on that next slide? Or, oh, I feel like I'm draining this in 4 slides because I found 4 really cool slides and I want to use all the slides, but I'm talking about one thing in 4 slides. So, before you even think about opening PowerPoint, just start with an outline, right? Write down your key message, what you want people to take away, what action do you want to compel them to take? And then, and only then, open PowerPoint and start putting your deck together. Don't let PowerPoint outshine what you have to say. It really should be there to amplify your message, like Melanie said. So I put the 70-30 ratio here. Good rule of thumb is 70% of your story should be you speaking, and 30% should really be that content or visuals that support your narration. Okay, so next we've got, as you're crafting your story, you want to make sure from the very start that you have a clear purpose in mind. So you could ask yourself, what is my goal here, right? Are you trying to convince funders to write a check? Are you trying to rally the troops after a tough quarter? If you don't know your goal, your audience is not going to know either. So you want to start with the goal first, and then you kind of start building your story around that. And so as you're building your story, a little trick right here that you could use is the 3 whys or the 3 whats. So if you're talking to external folks, maybe like donors, community partners, you might think, okay, why this cause? Why this organization? Why now? And then if you're presenting to internal folks, you can flip it to what, so what, now what? So what's your issue? Why does it matter to that particular audience? And then what happens next? So that'll help you kind of keep your message clear, keep it concise, and hopefully prevent, some of those tangents and unnecessary detail that can come up. So next we've got the elements of a great story. A great story has structure. So you want to think of elements of a great story, right? You want to think about having a character. Maybe you focus on an individual, a group whose lives have been impacted by your work. You can present a conflict, right? So what challenge or problem your organization has set out to improve. You've got your resolution. So how are you making a difference? How are you driving results? And then you have that call to action. So hopefully your story doesn't end with, hey, thanks for listening, right? You want to tie that story back to what you want the audience to do. Do you want them to donate, advocate for your cause, share the story, et cetera, et cetera? And then certainly not least, know your audience. You would not talk to a group of Gen Z interns the way you would pitch your nonprofit's group to a room full of executives, right? If you use words like skibbity or riz, oh my God, I heard that the other day, things that kids are saying, you might actually get points with the interns, mainly from the sheer absurdity of it, but you actually might gain points with the younger crowd, but you're not going to use that with a room full of executives, right? Tailor your message, adjust your tone. It truly makes all the difference. Just make sure that that call to action part really resonates with the specific audience. All right, back to Melanie.
All right. Great. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Bridget. We're going to talk now about best practices for our visuals. All right. An audience can tell when something doesn't feel premium. Take a look at these two ads, for example. Now, we talked before about good design is disciplined, and I'll show you some of the disciplines of design that can take your design to the next level. If you look at the ad on the left, here we have inconsistent typography. In a good design, you don't want to use more than two fonts. Three, it's sometimes, but never more than two is a good rule. We have extraneous information that's not important to the viewer of the ad. There's not enough white space or breathable space so that you can easily take in the image where it can read, you can contemplate each block of content. Everything's in bold. And I'll tell you, when everything is bold, everything's important, nothing is important. Your eye has nowhere to land, nothing to look at. And also poor supporting graphics. But look at the graphic on the right. This Jeep ad has one focus message, 15% off. You know that's the first thing you see. And look how they've only used one font in the top sector, but they've added a lot of great variety. They played with size, bold, all caps, thin line. So there's a lot of variety. You're not really limited actually when you have some constraints of just two fonts, for example. So, and look at the photograph, top notch, it's quality, and you have a very consistent color scheme. There was an important study in art and design schools, and they gave one group the ability to do whatever you want. Hey, you're totally free, just do whatever. And they had another group that said, okay, you're constrained. They gave them three things to work with, maybe three colors or two fonts, like we said. Guess who had the better outcomes? It was always the group that had the constraints. So that's where they found the greatest creativity happens. So you're really not limited. You're really setting yourself free to run within some nice assigned parameters. Let's talk about data because we have to present on data a lot. Data comes from human experience. And when we give our presentations, let's connect it back to human experiences. In other words, connect it back to reality. Here's a simple survey we're doing on filtered water or tap, which is something we all have experience with. Now, how do I present it? All right, this was my first pass. It wasn't bad. I mean, I have a shape behind it to give a little color pops, and I want to emphasize just the two things that are important. But it's not quite there. I thought, let me play with it a little more, bring it back to lived bodily experience, and here we are. I think this is a much more compelling way to show some data results. So brings it back to the body, it brings it back to the experience that everyone has. And look at the top. When you're presenting data, you don't want to make people have to work to figure out what's inside of your slide. You want to tell them from the beginning. And this also carries your story. Have customer value perceptions. I want to tell them the most important part in a sentence form right up front. 72% of your customers indicate they drink filtered water over tap. All right, boom, that's all you need to know. So they don't have to click in, they can see right away. And you can use these PowerPoint titles to carry your story along. Here's another one. I was having a really hard time helping my customer understand that they have a pricing problem with price transparency in their booking funnel. They weren't closing deals and they didn't know why. People got to the very last page of the booking funnel and then they dropped. And I was telling them, after talking to your customers, we've got a problem with peak experiences. You ever been in like maybe booking a plane flight and everything seems to be a great price, and then at the very end you have all these extra fees you didn't know were happening? Well, I needed a way to make them feel it in their bones so that they could empathize with the customer, what they see when they get to the very end, so they could make some changes. And here we go. I made a pricing journey so we can it charts the emotional highs and lows that a person goes through when they go through their funnel. And you can see they're excited and then maybe they have some decisions to make, a little bit of friction, and then they're very excited until they get to the very last phase. And on that very last page, the price goes up because all these other fees are added, and it's a negative surprise. Well, guess what? Presenting it in this visual way, the client finally got it. And that way they took this back to the executive team, and they're able to make some changes in order to raise their bookings by managing their peak experiences through the funnel. All right, back to you, Bridget.
Nice. Okay, time saver hacks. I'm actually going to take over sharing the screen. Okay. Okay, Melanie, can you see that?
I can see it. We're
Perfect.
good.
All right. I'm actually going to be working inside PowerPoint, so I apologize if the screen's a little small. I'm going to work on my bigger screen here. Okay, so time saver hacks. So as I'm putting slides together, these are a few just simple things that hopefully will change your life and save you so much time. And I was joking with Melanie, usually I can like feed off the room, so it's weird that it's just like blank space. So if you guys have light bulb moments or this is life changing, please put it in the chat. I would love to hear that. All right, so let's get started. All right, so first we've got the shift key. The shift key, I pretty much when I'm putting slides together, I always have a finger on the shift key. So shift is really what's going to give you structure. So when you have, when you're trying to put lines together and you can't get it just right or shapes, if you hold the shift key, it gives that structure. So for example, I've got these kind of text boxes over here. And let's say I want to put a line between the text boxes. Okay, so I've got my line. Now, right now, I am not holding the shift key, and you can see how kind of wobbly that line is. As soon as I hold shift, I have shift down. It ain't going anywhere, right? That line is straight as straight can be. And I'll show you again. So in the blue color. So we've got the line. Okay, I'm not holding shift. Again, it's moving all around. It might be slightly off. But if I hold that shift key, there we are again, not moving. Same thing with shapes. So if I want to insert, let's say a circle. Okay, right now, no shift key. My circle is an oval. And as soon as I hold shift, that is a perfect circle through and through every single time. So shift key, phenomenal trick if you haven't done it. Okay, cropping shapes. So this one, it kind of depends. If you're in presentation mode, usually the shapes that kind of come off of the slide will fix themselves. But if you just want a cleaner look, or maybe you want to use, half a star or something for dramatic effect, a circle coming off the page, this is how you're going to crop those shapes. So we'll start with that circle in the corner. So we're going to click on our circle. We're going to hold the shift key and then it's going to give that perfect circle. Now, before you place the shape, you do have to kind of do whatever formatting you want. So if we want the circle to be, blue, maybe we want a pink outline. We'll make it super defined outline. Okay, so you're going to place your shape. And then what you want to do is you actually want to cut and then you're going to paste the shape back. But when you paste, make sure you're clicking on pasting it as a picture. As soon as you paste it as a picture, it's actually going to allow you to crop it. So if I double click on the shape, this always opens up the formatting. So I'm going to click on that crop and then I can crop the shape. So actually, let me move this back so you can actually see it here. Crop it. And then we're gonna crop to however we need it and place the shape from there. Okay, one more really quick. We're gonna insert a star. Again, shift key, right? Gives us our perfect star. We'll make this star pink. And then again, we're going to cut the shape and we're going to paste as a picture. And that's gonna allow us to double click and crop the image to however we like the shape. Whoop. So we can place that star right there at the bottom. All right, moving on. This one, such a game changer, the format painter. If you aren't familiar with the format painter, totally okay. So this little guy right here, this paintbrush. So as you're going through a document, let's say, I have this text right here that's highlighted. Maybe the text is, we'll blow it up in size a little bigger. And we want to go through the document and change the rest of the formatting to match this so that we have uniform formatting. So if you click on this and you click the format painter, you can then click somewhere else and it's going to apply that formatting. But then it goes away. You can't click on anything else, right? But if you double click the format painter, so let's say I click on this, I'm double clicking this time. I can click here. I could click here. I could even go back a slide. I could click here. So that actually locks it and you can format paint until your little heart's content. So that's format painter. The way to escape is you would just hit the escape button, or you can just click the format painter again and it'll go out of that. But you can actually do it with shapes here. So if I wanted all my shapes to be this, blue and pink, again, I can double click and then I can just, shapes, words. You can do certain words. Oh, not there, but you can change it around from there. So format painter. Okay, now we've got removing backgrounds. So actually PowerPoint has a pretty cool tool integrated into it. If you're not aware with removing backgrounds, it's actually pretty good at it. Depends on how quality the photo is. So this comes in handy if let's say you have a company logo that you want to put somewhere, but maybe the background is a different color. And if you put the logo, you can see the square. So we'll use some superhero logos. So if you, again, double click on that image, it's going to open up your formatting. And here's your remove background button. So as soon as you click on it, it's going to predict everywhere in purple that it's going to remove that background. Like I said, it's pretty good depending on the image. So with this one, you probably could go in there and fix some of this kind of black outline. But just for the sake of time, we'll keep the changes right here. We'll click this, and then you've got your logo. We'll do it with Spider-Man next. So we double click, remove background. Again, it's done a phenomenal job of finding that. So we'll just keep changes, and then you have your logo in the background. Same thing goes if you want to do some fun things. So if this is little Fido's birthday and we want to give him a birthday hat, right now it's a white background. So we'll click on it. When we remove background, if you see right here, it's going to remove some of these little puffballs in the purple. So if we click keep changes, it's not quite there yet. So what we can do is if you go back to remove background, and I might have to zoom in a little. Okay. You can actually use these buttons too. You can drag it, you can click it on the areas that you still want to keep. So we want those puffballs there, maybe a little this top part. And then we'll keep changes, and there you go. A little hat. So we'll adjust it in size. Okay, perfect. And then finally, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one, but this is huge. If you're used to using PowerPoint and you just want to keep all your favorite buttons in one place, you can actually do a custom toolbar. We will send out this deck with instructions on some of these different tutorials. So hopefully you weren't trying to follow along and getting frazzled, but we'll send out instructions. You'll see this as well on how to create your custom toolbar. I have mine up here with my initials. So if I click on BNP, I have all of my alignment ones there. So when it comes time to try to make all the slides as perfect as possible, I just click on my custom toolbar and I can go through and use all my favorite buttons quickly from there. All right. Hopefully I changed some lives. So back to you, Melanie.
All right. Thank you, Bridget. Appreciate that. All right. I'm going to now share my screen and going to be in workshop mode again. So, all right. Shapes and pictures. Let's talk about how to punch up some of your formats. So, shapes. I'm amazed at what PowerPoint can do. I love Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Figma, But you can do a lot with PowerPoint. This is an example of a persona. I know the blurs, we had to hide the confidential information, but really a persona format like this is really just a bunch of shapes. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to use some shapes. All right, let's start with the Venn diagram, which we have to do a lot. Now, I'll start by, let's go to home, and I'm going to insert a shape. And all right, so we have our circle. Not a surprise to anyone yet, and I'll just put a nice outline around it. So we can see, I'm going to hit the Option key. You can hit the Option or the Alt key and drag, and it'll drag out another one. Now, here's the thing, though. They're overlapping. So what if I want this nice little shape in the middle? You'll see that actually this is now 3 shapes instead of 2. So I want to do the same thing over here. So I'm going to select them both. And you'll notice that in red, it gives me a shape formatting menu. And what's fun about that is that now I have all these particular 2 shapes and working with shapes. I'm going to go to merge shape and I'm going to go to fragment. And now you can see the 3 are now 1, and I can now come in here and I can add a new color. I can change this to red. And what's fun about this is with the shape fill, you don't have to use just color. You can actually use a photo if you wanted to, for example. I'm going to use this, and let's put in, I'm going to insert a photo. I just house sat my friend's cat, and I sent her this because her cat snores. So again, nice little image, but it's a lot of fun with pictures that you can do with shapes and filling in with pictures too. So. All right, let's say you're on Google and you need to do a strategic roadmap and you found the perfect example, only you want to make this your content. Well, what do? So break it down. I mean, my eye at first saw, well, how do I get this squiggly line? But actually, it's a lot more simple than that. You can see that this is actually just 2 shapes together, and this circle just has a really nice broad outline. So to recreate that, pretty simple. I'm going to make it again. We'll go to shape. I'm going to choose this rectangle tool. And okay, there we go. And what's fun about this is that the yellow handlebar, you can actually take that and slide and increase the radius of your corners. If you have a lot of control over shapes, which is really nice. So I'm just going to recreate this. I'm going to bring this up a little. Great, like that. And then I'm going to put in a circle. And let's choose a different color. I'm going to do red. All right. Oh, wasn't selected. Here we go. I want that to stand out. And I'm going to put a nice broad outline around that. But that outline's not enough. So what can we do? If we need, we'll go to weight. We can go down to more lines. And over here, it opens up a side panel where you have a lot more control. And here, I want to input my own line weight of, let's do 14 points. Okay, that's looking a lot better. All right, and it's starting to match up. So you can actually recreate a great design that you find on Google just by using shapes. Let's put 4 in the center, and then you can style that, yes, any way you want. And you have a nice little reproduction pretty quick. All right, terrific. I'll go next. All right, let's talk about photos. Great presentation. Only I'm not convinced if I see a blank background like this until if you add the right picture, okay, now I'm excited about what I'm about to see. Adding the right photo adds a lot of power to your a lot of impact to your visuals. So here is a takeaway slide for you. We'll have this in the deck so you can carry this with you. They don't have to cost a lot of money. Free to inexpensive. Here's some sources here. But let's say you have an annual report or you're going to pitch to donors. It may be worth it to invest in Shutterstock to get some really high quality images. Now, why should you pay for pictures when there's so much free content available? Well, I'm glad you asked. So we want to first of all, use images that carry your message, not just pretty or decorative. I run into this a lot. Here's farm technology. But looking at this image, can you tell what they do? farm technology is this with? With irrigation? Is it with seed planting? I have no idea. But if you choose an image such as this, that's a working photo. It conveys information. Now I have a much better idea of what this company is about. The idea is don't put it on the viewer to have to figure out what you do. In other words, you don't want them to have to exert a lot of effort in order to understand. Oh, we know this may be the cutest picture in the world, but what you pay for when you pay for an image is high resolution. Pixelated images really degrade the quality. It makes it look poor quality really quickly. Also, you pay for light. Light makes all the difference in an image. We call this the white sky of death in photography. It flattens everything out. There's not a lot of variation. But look how the light shifts and all this detail comes out of the mountain. A lot of visual interest here. Harsh lighting. Again, this is the same model, but look at all the difference that the light makes. It's incredible. So that's why it's amazing. It's worth it to maybe have a photographer come in and take some photos that really has this eye. Really amazing what the light can do. Also, you want to avoid contrived subject matter, trendy themes that we see on a lot of the websites. So it's worth it to have your own image, get some creativity, and put in some things that really work for you. Oh, and last tip. You might have found the great image, but I want it to fit along this gray bar. Well, resist that temptation to stretch. We want to crop and never stretch. So I'm going to hold down either, you can hold down the control or you can right click, or you can go up to picture format and find the crop tool again up here. But I'm going to designate the space where I want it to go. Oh, back up. I want to pull out the crop handlebar here, and then I want to put it here. And you can see now this is active where the image can rest. And I just want to take this and I'm going to pull by the handlebar and pull it out, move it down. And there we go. I have some visual interest going across the bottom of the screen. That's just what I was wanting. All right, now I will turn it back over to you, Bridget.
Nice, thank you. If we can pop that back up, awesome. Okay. It's funny, every time Melanie does this, I learn something new. So every time I'm just like, you should have seen me behind the screen, just zoned in. She's amazing. Okay, so presenting with confidence. All right, so you've done the prep work, your story's solid, you've used all of Melanie's and I's tricks, you got some killer visuals, and now it's showtime, right? So let's talk a little bit about how to actually deliver a compelling presentation. So some of my favorite tips. First off, if you can move forward, don't say slides. I know this is feels like it might be impossible. I'll be honest, sometimes I'm working on it myself. Resisting the urge to say, Melanie, can you go to the next slide, please? Even then, in situations like that, right? Really make a conscious effort to avoid it. Anytime you say, on the next slide, or a few slides ago we talked about, or, later on in my presentation, all you're doing is reminding people that they're being PowerPointed at, right? You're calling attention to the fact that for the next hour, you're going to give a presentation and they're going to sit through it. And it kind of gives this like negative association with the experience, that it's boring, that it's not very compelling. So by you calling attention to that fact, you're giving the audience permission not to pay attention or to multitask, right? Because you're implying that all the information that you're going to present is already in the deck anyway, so why pay attention? So what you want to do is change that narrative a bit and say things like, as we spoke about earlier, or, later on in the conversation, I'd like to open a discussion about, XYZ. Then it feels more like an unveiling of information, and it's more of an open conversation. So hopefully that subtle change will keep things a little more engaging and make the audience feel like they're a part of the story. And listen, I get it. Sometimes the information is very boring and not exciting. I totally get that. But by doing that, you're still putting your audience in that mindset that there is something to look forward to, or maybe something to pay attention to other than like counting the number of slides between now and lunch. Okay, so next we have lead, don't read. Your slides are not your teleprompter. Say it again. Your slides are not your teleprompter, okay? I know we touched on this a bit during the creation tips, but remember, your slides are there to support you. They're not there to replace you. They are the backup singer. You are the lead vocalist, right? If your audience can read everything on the slide without you, then you may as well just send an email and call it a day. If you're worried about them not being able to remember everything you talked about, or you think it's going to get, forwarded to other people that were not there for the initial talk, you can actually do something that Melanie introduced me to, which is called a leave behind deck. So you have your presentation deck, and that's what you're using to present. And then you have a leave behind deck that's going to have a lot more detail and context. So, for example, we're actually going to use that with you guys. So you might notice that the deck that you're going to get after this is going to have a little more detail on some of the slides. We're actually going to add in some of those tutorials for the time saver hacks. So again, we're presenting on a slide that's a deck that's slightly different than the presentation that you'll get afterwards. Okay, next, avoid getting lost in translation. I know some people think that jargon or buzzwords sound really impressive, or make them feel like they really know what they're talking about. But from the audience perspective, depending on who's in the audience, that makes people zone out, or they get stuck on trying to figure out what the heck that acronym you just used are, or you might lose points because you didn't do your homework and you didn't know your audience. So if you're speaking with donors or you're speaking with executives, it's really not best to assume that they're going to understand things that you might think is obvious for people in that industry, or use some of those internal acronyms that you and your team throws around. Just truly simplicity is best. And just also one small thing, this is like a pet peeve of mine. Of course, there is a time and place for this, but if you've got internal meetings with your team, it does not have to feel like a stuffy corporate board meeting every time, right? People honestly engage more when you speak their language, which is clear, simple, and just be human. That's it. Okay, so next we've got a clarity over complexity. So don't drown them in the details. We live in a society that listens to TikTok or YouTube or audiobooks on 2x speed, right? We want instant gratification. 2 days delivery is 2 days too late, right? You are fighting people's innate ability to absorb information just insanely quick. And as a result, people get really bored really fast. So more information does not necessarily mean more impact. I'm sure that pretty much everybody on this webinar probably knows an insane amount of information about your different subjects. And that's amazing. I mean, you should really be passionate about, what you're setting out to do, but your job is not to flood your audience with everything you know about it, right? It's about focusing on what really matters to this specific audience at this specific time. So for your team, that might be just clear, actionable steps. If it's your board or your funders, they just need to understand the impact. If it's your community partners, they want to understand their role or where they fit in. So the goal is finding that right level of detail, right? Just enough to keep them engaged. What is practical? What is meaningful? What are those 1 to 3 takeaways that you want them to remember tomorrow? And then you stick with that. And then if they start asking questions or you gauge that they want to learn more, fabulous. That's exactly where you want to be. You build on that. But there's no need to overdo it from the start. Okay, and then last trick, this is one of my favorites. So trick people's brains to open their minds. Our brains love patterns, and we typically automatically try to predict what's coming next. And so when you throw in a zinger, right, you throw in something unexpected, an unusual stat, a really great story, a joke, something like that, it's going to force people to pay attention. And it kind of creates this little opening for you to really hit a key message that's actually going to land, as opposed to, floating away as they check their email. So, for example, I could start a presentation and I could say, the biggest barrier to solving homelessness is not a lack of funding, it is a lack of coordination. And the audience might think, wait, what? Because you've kind of gone against what they've probably predicted you were going to say. And then you use that moment to, introduce your solution, or fit one of your big takeaways in. So you want to take advantage of that uncertainty. So just last thing to kind of think on as we close this slide is when you're communicating with your board or your donors or your community partners, really try to think about what you might be able to do to break up those expectations, because it's really those moments of disruption where people lean in and actually start to listen. All right, Melanie, take it away with your cool presenting tool. This is very cool.
Oh, well, thank you very much. All right. Appreciate that. So here we have a fun tool it's an AI-driven tool and it's embedded right in PowerPoint. So I'm going to show you, it's called the Presentation Coach, Rehearse with Coach. And I'm going to show you how. Let me move this over. All right, I'm going to show you how to use this. So this is to help you practice your presentation, get your timing just right. And you can see in this top bar, we have slideshow. And down here, you can choose rehearse with coach, kind of embedded toward the center here. All right. And we have a pop-up that comes up and it says start rehearsing. And when I click that, we're going to do just that. I want to show feedback. I want to keep that selected so I can get my feedback as I go. So here I am. My name is Melanie, and welcome to Presentation Zen. This is the AI Talk Track Coach. Let's see. Okay. Oh, I got a coach right here. Don't too many filler words. So let's stop this now. It's not intuitive, but you have to press escape to get it to stop. And when I do that, I get a readout. So here is my pace, my pitch. It gives me some tips here. Hey, do a low pitch variation. Your audience is going to lose interest. So increase your tone for key points. Also gives me my pace over time. It tells me about my filler words. And if I've used repetitive language, it also gives me inclusive language. Have I talked to the whole room rather than just a few? So this is a fun tool, rehearse with coach. Okay. I'm going to hand this. All right. I believe this is the last part, and we are down to the last section of Q&A.
And I'm not sure, Yenting, do people have the ability to speak or just chat?
You can chat. If you do want to speak, just raise your hand and I can unmute you.
Awesome. All right. If anybody wants to throw in the chat questions, if they want to speak up, I'm loving all the feedback for the life-changing tips. That always gives me some energy. So super happy about that. We'll give it a minute or two, see if anybody has questions. That presentation coach is a game changer too, Melanie. You changed my life with that one for sure.
What a great practice tool.
Oh my goodness. Every single tip you all just shared was life-changing. It was one after the other and had no clue about any of these. Just mind-blowing.
And I will say some of the PowerPoint tools that we used, you can use in other Microsoft products. So if you're in Word or something like that, you can also use them. So life-changing all around, I know.
It's amazing.
Awesome. Well, I don't think we have any. Oh,
yep. So there is going to be a recording. This is being recorded, thankfully. It will be shared with you afterwards. And like Bridget and Melanie share, they're going to share with us, how did you call it? The lead on the
leave behind deck.
The leave behind deck. Thank you. So we'll get that to you as well. I know there was a question about how to get the background removal, so feel free to just go back to this recording and I'm sure there's a tutorial in there that you can look back on.
We will definitely put instructions on that. So you don't have to listen to the recording if you want. You can just click on that deck and we'll go through the instructions for you. So
perfect. This has been like the most feedback I've ever gotten on any webinar. You guys did an amazing job. Thank you so much. Might tap y'all again to do like part 2. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yes.
Oh, we do have a question. When you're preparing your 3 whys and whats, is it okay to use both whys and whats?
Yeah, great question. You know, it's funny. Sometimes you start thinking you have to use both, and they actually kind of fit into both buckets. And so you'll find sometimes you really actually don't have to use both. You can use one or the other. But I think the main part of that is just figuring out how you can kind of fit things into categories, and so you don't get lost in the details. So if it is that you need both, that could be the case, but just make sure that you're not kind of going off on too many tangents, and keeping that information concise. So hopefully that answers that. Great question.
And we have another question. Is the AI coach automatically on PowerPoint?
I believe it's embedded. I think it comes standard. No, nothing else to add.
Quick question, if I can. PowerPoint, I think it's Designer, where it pops up like a recommendation of, what your slide could look like. Curious about your thoughts around that.
I can take that one if you like. I would
Yeah,
say no, because it's going to give you a very inconsistent design from one slide to the next, and it may not match your branding. So it is helpful, but I tend to turn that off so that, again, remember, good branding and good design is about a very narrow focus, and we can get a lot of power within constraints. Think about a river when it's pretty lazy when it's wide, but when the cliffs come in and then now it's like whitewater, you got a lot of energy going through. And so let's contain that energy by keeping your design consistent and constrained within those constraints.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would say. Sometimes when I see the different suggestions, it's like my entire presentation has had my title here, my subtitle here. You want that to stay fluid, or flow the same way. And then suddenly, if you click on a suggestion, now suddenly your title's over here and your subtitle's over here, and it does stand out. And sometimes it can get distracting. So just something to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I like this comment. It's hard to know what AI is helpful and what is hurtful. I completely agree. Yes.
Yes.
Any final questions? I did drop in the survey, which I'm going to try to drop in again since it's probably got lost in the chat. Please complete that. And if you do want a part two, mention that in the survey. And if we get enough interest, we might tap you all again if you are willing and able. Any final comments from you all?
I just want to say you've been a great group, and we really appreciate your time and presence in being here with us.
For sure. Glad we changed some lives. That's what we set out to do. So we feel good about it.
You absolutely have.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. The three of you have been amazing. We will circle back with you, of course. And yeah, it's great working with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone else,
Bye.
expect the follow-up email and have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.